Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. Joined today with Dale and David. We are going to deep dive one of the best draft classes of any school, and that's Georgia. We think this is going to be like a top 5 NFL draft class. But before we dive in, David, how are you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, I love this class. I think the 2026 Georgia class has impactful athletes across multiple positions. And like you said, they could probably end up being a top 5 school in the 2026 draft as well. So, yeah, Clemson was probably the most exciting school to scout. This is probably second, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's up there. I think, Texas, Alabama, some other ones we got coming up will have some good classes as well. But, yeah, Georgia's right in that mix. I mean, I don't even know how many guys we have on here that we're covering, 10, 11, but there's another, 6 or 7 that I can at least mention names that could end up being like 2027 guys that are at least maybe draft eligible that we might touch on toward the end as well.
Yeah, we'll try to drop as many names as we can. And Pork Chop, I know that you want us to do LSU. I believe that's the second one in July. If it's not the second, it's the third. We have a LSU podcaster coming on to help us. So we will be all go for LSU once we've wrapped up the holiday weekend. But we are doing Georgia right now. And Georgia actually has several wide receivers that we're going to talk about. Let's start with Zachariah Branch. David, what do you have on Zachariah Branch?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. He might be Georgia's biggest X factor. The former Jet Award winner, All-American, brings game-breaking speed, special team value that few people can match. He's a threat to score every time he touches the ball. He's electric as a returner, dynamic from the slot. If he earns a steady role in their offense, his elite return resume and explosive traits will probably make him a day 2 lock in the draft. I mean, he's a wild card with lightning in his cleats, man. I'm excited to watch him this year.
Yeah, and I kind of echo. Yeah, I kind of echo exactly what David's saying here. 5'10", 180. So he's going into his true junior year. He played 2 seasons at USC, so he's transferring over to Georgia from them. Electric playmaker, exactly what David said is another thing I had down in my notes. Does spend a majority of the time in the slot. His drop rate last year was only 6%, so you love to see that. Great speed. Also, as David mentioned, the special teams, he is a punt and kickoff returner, and I believe he's taken one of at least each, both back to the house at some point in his 2 seasons for USC. So, I mean, you're talking about not only – and they love to get the ball in his hands, and I expect Georgia will do the same. So, whether it's screens, reverses, but also as a return man, just anytime he gets it, you could expect that it could go for 6 right away. He was only 2 of 10 for contested catches, so a little bit of the things that you want to see improve this year before he would enter the draft. But he is undersized, so that's part of it. Then you worry a little bit about durability. He's listed at 180, but I'm not even sure if he is actually that. Like he looks like he could be even smaller than 180, but he's a very fun prospect. And I've got him kind of in that similar range. Like as of right now, going into the season already, I would say around the 2nd round guy for me. And if he has a big season, that could even creep up higher in a pretty wide open wide receiver class.
So I want to give a shout out to Jake. Jake will be joining us when we do Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's the next podcast, so you guys will have a chance to meet Jake. But Jake, thanks for stopping by. So I have a question about the Georgia wide receivers. So I've heard varying evals on Zachariah Branch. I know Anthony Russo covered him, and we've got a few other wide receiver podcasts. Is he the highest rated Georgia wide receiver for you guys?
He is for me. And then I'd say Dillon Bell. And then, I mean, Colbie Young is coming off a suspension last season, who's a guy, we may get into with the extra guys, and also a transfer from Texas A&M and Noah Thomas. I don't know how that's going to play out for who gets the majority of playing time. They also have London Humphreys. So literally there's 5 guys that could be draft eligible. Some of those will end up being 2027. But yeah, I think Branch is the most electric, dynamic, and he's the highest one I have on my board.
Yeah, same. I have Branch 1, Bell 2nd. That's how I have it.
You had, could you repeat that, David?
Yeah, I have Zachariah Branch first and Dillon Bell second.
Okay, so let's do Dillon Bell next. So, David, what do you have on Dillon Bell?
Yeah, what I like about him, he's like a Swiss Army weapon, man. I mean, few players bring more versatility to the field than he does, whether it's catching, running, or returning. He does it all, and he does it all good. His campaign last year, I think he had 43 catches, 500-ish yards, 4 touchdowns. He showed growth of, his route running was better. He had really strong hands. The difference in him and Branch is he's a lot more sturdier, 6'1", 210. I think that's about right. He's hard to bring down. He thrives in open space. He's a kind of smart, multifaceted weapon that NFL teams just love to stash. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a day 3 steal, or if he does well this season, he even moves up to day 2 because he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
Dale, how about you?
Similar. So he's a senior, so you can expect him in this class where some of the other guys like Humphreys and stuff that are receivers, and even Branch, they have another year eligibility if they choose to use it. But Bell is going into a senior year, so this should be it for him. But a good possession guy, as David mentioned, they like to use him on reverses, everything else, get the ball in his hands. He is a sturdy guy. He's pretty good with body control, contested catch ability, and he's a willing blocker. And having that size is an extra benefit when you're blocking on the outside like that. The biggest thing I want to see for him to improve is drops. He had a 12.2% drop rate last year, and you're hoping that, that number decreases down, obviously lower to like 5% for the season would be a lot better. But that was an issue not only with him, but his teammate, the speedster, Arian Smith, I believe it was, that got drafted this year. So they had a lot of drop issues. Hopefully they can cut down on that. And just game-to-game consistency. He have some big games and then some other games where he didn't do a whole lot. So I'd like to see him just produce at a more consistent rate, which may be even tougher to do. I know Carson Beck didn't have a good season, but they got a lot of weapons, a lot of talent, a lot of good young running backs there too. So I don't know how much opportunities he'll get, but I do think he's a solid day 3 prospect as of right now.
Okay. One other note, there was, I believe, one highlight as I was getting ready to PR the podcast. Dillon Bell, I believe, has thrown a touchdown pass. If I saw that play correctly, he has at least one touchdown pass on his stat sheet as well, correct?
Yep, you're correct. I can't remember the game, but yeah, I remember seeing that too when I was watching him.
Yep. Okay, so Zachariah Branch, Dillon Bell, we have draftable grades on at wide receiver. The other wide receivers that you heard Dale, David, and I mention, but we're really not going to do a deep dive on them. Colbie Young is a senior wide receiver at Georgia. Noah Thomas, senior wide receiver. London Humphreys, junior wide receiver. And Gunnar Stockton as another redshirt junior wide receiver. So Georgia has
quarterback. Stockton's going to be the quarterback this year. He should.
I got to learn how to read my commas. Thank you. I got to learn how to read the commas on the sheet. Okay, so that was Colbie Young, Noah Thomas, London Humphreys as additional wide receivers that you may see their name for the draft, but we're probably not going to cover them until closer to January, depending upon if they're in the draft class or not.
Yeah, and I can mention a little bit, like especially on Young and Thomas since they're seniors. Both guys have fantastic size. Young is 6'3", 215. Thomas 6'5", 205. So he's a slider build for Thomas, but both guys with great size, great length, contested catch ability. And as I mentioned, Colbie Young was dismissed last year for some off-the-field stuff, but apparently that's cleared up, so he is back with the team. So he is there. Thomas is there. And London Humphreys was coming on a lot last year, competitive at the catch point, a pretty good route runner. But I think he's more likely a 2027 guy, especially I think all 4 of the other guys are probably going to get more targets than Humphreys, but you just never know how it'll shake out.
Cool. And then Georgia has 2 tight ends, and we're going to start with Oscar Delp. And Max, who is he has his own tight end Discord. He only does tight ends. He has Delp at tight end 1, according to what I read as I was getting ready for this podcast. But Dale, what do you have on Oscar Delp?
So he's 6'5", 245. This will be his senior year. A lot of people thought he could have been in the draft last year, but he didn't really have the breakout that a lot of people expected after Brock Bowers went off to the NFL. A lot of people thought, hey, this is next in line, this Georgia factory of tight ends, which him and Lawson Luckie, who we'll talk about, are going to be the NFL guys for sure. But didn't have a huge productive season, but he's a good athlete. You can line him up all over the place. He's got reliable hands. His drop rate's only 3.8% for his entire career so far at Georgia. And he's got a little bit of run after the catch with that athleticism. Contested catch opportunities, only 12.5% for his career. So I'd like to see him a little better in that aspect of his game. But the size is there, being 6'5". And he's had some ball security issues when he's running after the catch. And the blocking's another thing. He's just got to get better in that area as an inline blocker. And I'd like to see him just be more productive. I mean, Lawson Luckie actually ended up outproducing him last year. But all the talent's there. He's a guy that I think could be around a 3rd, 4th rounder if I had to put a grade on him right now. But if he's higher than that after the season, if he's productive, and I mean, all the talent is there for him to move up the board. But I just got to see it before I have him any higher than 3rd or 4th.
David, how about you? What do you have on Oscar Delp?
Yeah, Dale mentioned his size, 6'5", 245. So Oscar Delp looks the part. He's a modern, tight end with smooth route running, dependable hands for the most part. He mentioned his 3.8% college drop rate. And all those 2024 stats were modest, 21 catches, 240 some yards, 4 touchdowns. His athleticism and all around polish suggests he could be an immediate NFL contributor. Whether lining up in line or flexed out, he brings versatility, pretty good value. And in a tight end class that may lack some elite headliners, Delp's Georgia pedigree and reliable, game make him a prime option, in my opinion. So I have a 3rd round grade on him as well.
Okay, so he's not going to be an Eagle round 1 just yet?
No. No, but they're looking for a tight end, so maybe. You never know.
It's wide open. I feel like the tight end is
Agreed.
pretty wide open. Like anybody could really take hold of that tight end 1 spot this season. I think there's, 5-6 guys in that range that I kind of list them anywhere between like 2 and 4th round, but it's like somebody you expect to step up and like show, hey, I'm the guy. And that's the guy you end up seeing at least one of those guys go in the 1st round when all's said and done. It's just a matter of who is it going to be. Delp is a prime candidate to be that guy, I think.
And including his teammate we're about to talk about, he could step right in there too.
Yeah. So Bill and Newt did top 10 offensive positions. We did those, I think, last week. When they did tight ends, each of them had 5 tight ends that were not in the other player's top 10, to your point, Dale. Like this is definitely a free-for-all at tight end in the draft class right now. I don't see too much consensus yet on I think if we went to like the top 25 tight ends, everybody's got the same, but how they're stacking them, even at the top, looks to be different this early in the draft cycle. But the next tight end we're going to talk about from Georgia is Lawson Luckie, a junior tight end. Dale, what do you have on Lawson Luckie?
So another guy that Georgia pipeline at tight end. He may be 2027, but I actually have him even higher than Oscar Delp from what I seen last year. I thought he was incredible, and he's a little younger, 6'4", 240. Going into his true junior season, I don't think he redshirted. Didn't have a single drop in 2024, I don't believe. Good route runner, put up 348 yards, so that's pretty good for a guy who was kind of their tight end 2 coming into the season. And he does need to be better in contested catch situations. He was listed 0 for 7 in those opportunities. So he's got the size, he's got the length. There's really no reason for it to be that poor. Hopefully that's something that improves this year. And he needs to bulk up some. Being 240, you'd like to see, just 5 pounds or so of muscle to add to that frame, and that'll help him hopefully as a blocker, especially at the point of attack when he's blocking. But I'm expecting a big season from him, and right now I've got him kind of 2nd, 3rd, where I got Delp 3rd, 4th. I've got him just a tad higher, but I think it's wide open. Like with all tight ends, it's wide open with these Georgia tight ends on who takes the keys over as as the heir apparent to the Brock Bowers and shows himself to be the man there.
What about Luckie has you rating him higher than Delp?
I just thought he was more consistent. I thought he was a little bit smoother of a route runner last year. I thought he had a catch against Texas that just really impressed me. So I don't know how he got his toe down on that play where he's just running full steam headed toward the sideline, gets a nice little toe tap on the side. So I just think they're both fantastic athletes, but I just think there's something about Lawson Luckie that I just think he's got maybe a higher ceiling than what Oscar Delp does. But both of them, I think, have high ceilings for the NFL.
So, David, what do you have on Lawson Luckie?
I have a third round grade on him as well with potential to move up to the second. I mean, if there's a breakout waiting to happen in Georgia's offense, it's Lawson Luckie. I mean, he, fluid mover, sure hands. He's built to stretch the seam and create mismatches. His 2024 line only hints at what's coming, in my opinion. Coaches rave about his explosiveness and his football IQ. And while he's been overshadowed nationally in draft circles, everyone I talk to sees big potential with him. A big 2025 could vault him up boards. I think Dale mentioned it, no drops in 2024. If he improves that contested catch rate and gets a little more bulk on him, he easily could be a top 75 player in the 2026 draft.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to dive into Georgia's offensive line. So they have several offensive linemen. The first we're going to cover is Earnest Green III, who is a Georgia offensive tackle. He will probably project a guard at the NFL level if the scouting reports last year were accurate. But, David, what do you have on Earnest Green III?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him, man. He's built like a franchise left tackle, in my opinion. He's already kind of battle tested. He's, Georgia's next big man up front with 23, starts. He's the definition of power blocking, mauler, which is probably where a lot of people are getting the guard comps from. I think he's 6'4", 320. Dale could correct me if I'm wrong there. But he has the frame to just punish defenders in the run game, man. I mean, he's just great at that. And if he stays healthy and he can improve his pass pro, he's one of the more intriguing tackle prospects in the class. Scouts that, that I talk to or respect and listen to, they believe he's putting it all together right now. And if this is the year that he puts a clean season up, he could, really shock people with how high he could go in the draft.
So Dale, how about you, Earnest Green?
Going into his redshirt junior year. So last year, a lot of people thought he might come out, but he was only a redshirt sophomore, and he didn't have the season 2 come out. He kind of struggled at times and was benched at different times. And Monroe Feeling, who's a guy we'll talk about, played a lot of those snaps at left tackle. And I believe that's how they're going to have it this year. They're going to let Freeling be left tackle. And I think they're kicking Green over to right tackle. But, Jim, I agree with you. I think his long-term projection is probably going to be best at guard. I just think, I think he does have long arms. I believe I read that somewhere. So even though he's 6'4", he is a little longer than a typical 6'4" offensive lineman. So he could maybe stick at right tackle, but he's had some struggles there at Georgia. He does play with a good pad level, good length, even though he's 6'4". Average as an athlete overall, though. Had a back surgery in 2022, so medicals could be important whenever he decides to finally come out. There's some balance concerns, and then just more consistent as a run blocker and a pass blocker. Consistency was not there. In games where he looked incredible, even the year before last season, but then last year, just some games where he had to be benched multiple times. And I just need to see more consistency. But I list him as a guard already, and I think as a guard, probably a 3rd or 4th round type of prospect still to this point.
Okay, and then Dale, you mentioned the next player we're going to talk about, Monroe Feeling, junior offensive tackle.
Yeah, I'm actually quite a bit higher on him. I know it's a little bit more of a limited sample size, but what tape is out there was really good. So he's played both left and right side, but I believe he's going to get that left tackle job to start with and stick there. 6'7", 315. So prototype left tackle frame at that size. Quick feet and pass protection, good blocker on the move. And he played his best football late in the season. So with Green struggling, they kind of went to him, and they went to him down the stretch and into the playoffs. And I thought that's when he played his best football. He did give up 21 pressures on the season, so you'd like to see that number decrease this year. And I'd like to see him improve his hand usage, keep pass rushers out of his chest. Because 315, he's still a little bit light. Another guy could probably put on another 5 pounds or so. And more reps is just going to help him overall. Clean up strike timing, consistently connect with his target more often. I'm probably higher on him than most, but if he would declare and he continues to ascend like he did at the end of the season, I think he could end up as like a second-round guy, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. And if he decides to come back for 2027, he could maybe work his way into a first-round guy. I really liked the limited sample size that I saw from him.
How about you, David? What do you have on Monroe Feeling?
Yeah, Dale nailed it. He's still developing, and I have him slotted as like a 2027 guy. That's where I have him right now. I think, he has the luxury of time and top-tier coaching to polish his game, and he should take advantage of it. Long-term, he has the tools to become a premier left tackle, in my opinion. He's one of Georgia's most valuable investments at this point. Dale touched on his, quick feet and pass protection, and he played his best as the season progressed. And, I think all he needs is a little bit more time, and you're going to see a top-tier offensive tackle that will likely be a top 50 selection in 2027.
Okay, and then the last Georgia offensive lineman, Micah Morris. So, David, what do you have on Micah Morris?
Yeah, he's a guy who's just been patiently grinding his way into the Georgia starting five, man. He's a former 4-star tackle recruit turned interior beast. He brings power, leverage, textbook technique to the guard spot. Starting at left guard duties on the horizon, in my opinion. He'll have every chance to show NFL scouts that he's more than just a depth piece. His size and experience make him a strong day 3 candidate as of now, in my opinion. And he could be a plug-and-play option for teams, looking for somebody tough up front.
Dale, how about you?
So 6'4", 330. I mean, if that doesn't scream like power guard, I don't know what does. Like, that's just the perfect power build for a guard. But a redshirt junior season, he's got that thick frame, heavy hands, and versatility because he's played both guard spots and he's had to kick out and play some left tackle. So he's never really been a full-time starter, but he's kind of been that one of those first guys off the bench. They've dealt with injuries, even Amarius Mims, who's at the Bengals, a guy they've had to shuffle different guys around. So he's another guy that's played a lot of spots, and he's not given up a sack in almost 900 total snaps, but he's never been a full-time starter. That's the thing. So I got him day 3 also, and it's honestly like there's a lot to like with him. He needs to work on handling inside counter moves a little bit, and just I want to see it for a full season. But I know there's a lot of other guys that are really high on him. I think Anthony Russo is one of them. I think he really likes Micah as well. So I've got him day 3, and I think me and him kind of talked on Twitter about it before. I said, I just got to see more. I got to see it for a full season. I'm kind of like, you see the flashes and you don't want to get too high on guys. So I've got him a little lower for now, but I can fully understand why Anthony would be higher on this kid because potential's definitely there.
And when a guard is day 3, that should not be considered a slight.
That's true.
Because the number of guards that will go on day 2 would be low. Like, you would have to be an immediate starter, and a team's got to have a really big need that's bigger than the other needs on the roster. It feels to me like standard team building is you take your guards in rounds 4 and 5.
Yeah, and round 1, I mean, you might get one, right? Most years you get one. I mean, it was Tyler Booker, I think, this year, but a lot of times it's converted tackles, that end up kicking into guard, but there might be 1 or 2 in the first round. So you're not getting many in that round either.
Yep. Okay, so the last offensive player on Georgia is quarterback Gunnar Stockton, who is a redshirt junior. So, Dale, what do you have on Gunnar Stockton?
Not a lot because he hasn't played a lot, but he's 6'1", 215, redshirt junior year that he's going into. Was a 5-star recruit, so the pedigree, the high school, status that he had coming out. And he's just kind of been waiting his time behind Carson Beck. He has, had to come in and start some games here and there. But he's shown some ability. He's got a quick release and a high football IQ, but it's limited reps. And then you wonder about the height, like when you're 6'1", seeing over your linemen, things like that. But the talent's there, the arm strength's there, the mobility's there. and he's got the keys to the car. So how does he drive it?
Okay. David, do you have anything to add on Stockton?
Not much. Dale hit on it that, you just haven't seen much of him. I mean, he's shown good arm strength, quick release. You just got to see him do it. I think he's a better athlete overall than some people are giving him credit for, like from the limited that I have seen. But, Dale's right. He's in the driver's seat now, and it's his turn to produce. So it's kind of hard to really evaluate him until you see what he's going to do with the team.
Okay. So we have approximately 4 defensive players from Georgia we're going to spend, let's say, a little bit of time on. We're going to start with Christen Miller, redshirt junior defensive tackle. David, what do you have?
Yeah, he blossomed into a trench anchor for Georgia's front. He delivered, I think, 4 TFLs, cementing his status as, he's a force against the run with a little bit of pass rushing juice as well. I think he's 6'4", 305. He's, one of these guys who has, a good mix of size, power, and quickness. As Georgia reloads for another run, Miller, he's going to be the guy, the rock in the middle, and he's a rising name amongst a lot of interior defenders for the 2026 NFL draft.
So, Dale, what do you have?
Yeah, pretty similar. Redshirt junior, quick first step, good foundation of pass rush moves. He's got stack and shed ability. He's a reliable tackler. Alignment and scheme versatility, so you can move him around. He should be able to play in any scheme, 3-4, 4-3. It doesn't matter. You can get him in there. He does lack some experience. Georgia's had a ton of defensive linemen over the years, so he's still rotated in, but, now he's going to have a much bigger workload and see a lot more snaps this season, so I'm hoping that production increases with that. He did have a shoulder surgery after the season, so that's something to monitor if he's back week 1, healthy, how he's doing through camp. I don't know if he practiced at all during spring, but if he had a shoulder surgery, I highly doubt it. So that's just something to monitor. But, yeah, he's got potential to be a day 2 guy easily and maybe even higher than that with a big season for Georgia, who consistently produces some damn good defensive linemen.
Okay, and then the next player that we're going to talk about is cornerback Daylen Everette. David, what do you have on Daylen Everette?
I mean, he was a 3-year starter in the SEC. That speaks volumes in itself. He made a name for himself last year leading the Bulldogs. I think he had 3 picks. He showed off lockdown potential in games with his 2-pick outing versus Texas, which was a pretty impressive game. I think he's 6'1", 190. He has prototypical NFL corner build and the ball skills to match it. He's sticky in coverage. He plays with like a veteran poise. He's trending firmly towards first-round territory for me, especially if he builds on his playmaking resume in 2025.
Dale, how about you?
Yeah, going into a senior year, another guy people thought could have came out last year and potentially been, maybe a fringe day 2 type of guy, but decided to go back and maybe he'll work up to round 1 this year. We'll see how that decision pays off. But he's got the length, the athleticism, the physicality. I mean, very aggressive tackler as a corner, which I love to see. Really good ball skills, a ton of special teams experience too during his time at Georgia. And that Texas game, as David mentioned, was just incredible. That's one I watched as well. He had a fantastic blitz against Texas where he perfectly disguised it and timed it to absolutely level Quinn Ewers and force a fumble. Then he also recovered the fumble, so you always love to see that. And later disguised man-to-man coverage, dropped into zone, intercepted Quinn Ewers. So Quinn Ewers is not probably very happy with Daylen Everette because I'm sure that didn't help his draft stock at all in that game versus Georgia. But some things to improve that. He could add a little more bulk to that frame. The deep speed is good, but not great, which I feel like there's been other Georgia corners like that recently, but they do everything else so well. Their technique is so good. The way they disguise things is so good that really not being a low 4-4 guy doesn't typically hurt these Georgia corners like, it seems to some other players. They're just so fundamentally sound that they're fine without it. I just think he's a really good cornerback prospect, and there's definitely first-round potential there. But right now I've got him as a day 2 guy, probably second round is where I list him. But I think sky's the limit for him. I mean, because he was fantastic, honestly, last year. So I think another big season, you're talking he's right in that mix to be a first-round corner.
Nice. Okay, so the last two defensive players that we're going to spend a lot of time on for Georgia are linebackers. And if you're here to listen to CJ Allen, you're going to have to wait about 5 more minutes. The first linebacker we're going to cover is Raylen Wilson, junior linebacker. David, what do you have on Raylen Wilson?
I'll preface this by saying that Georgia Bulldog linebackers feast. They eat. They get opportunities to show out in that defense. This guy's explosive, rangy. He's violent downhill. He's like a new age, like linebacker prototype. He wrapped 47 tackles, 1.5 sacks, I think. He forced a fumble, and he did all that in limited playing time. He showed off elite sideline to sideline speed. He's raw, but he is talented and electrifying. If he continues to hone his instincts and play recognition, I think he's going to rise fast. The tools are there for a breakout season, and I think the sky is the limit for that kid, man. I'm pretty excited to watch him. He's one of the players I'm most looking forward to on their defense to see this season.
Dale.
Yeah, and he took a big step this year. I mean, with just his overall play, physicality, his strength. He's definitely worked on his body to get bigger. He's listed at 6'1", 235. And he doesn't even turn 20 until July 7th. So he's been 19 and out there making plays and shown so much improvement from his freshman season. Sideline to sideline range, good instincts, reliable tackler. He improved the most last year, really, ability to take on blocks and shed linemen, which is a testament to that improved strength. And he improved as a blitzer. He's considered slightly undersized still, but as I mentioned, he's put in the work to get bigger and stronger. And he needs to probably improve in coverage a little bit more, but he does everything that a modern linebacker can do for the most part. And I mean, he's on the line, and I think it was against Clemson, like the left tackle's trying to block him, and he just stands him straight up and sheds him. And it's like, all right, here's a guy who's been knocked for his size, but he can do that against a left tackle that we've talked about, for being in the NFL draft. So I think that the potential's definitely there. I didn't have him with my initial group, so I've kind of had him as a 27 guy. But doing this podcast and looking more into him and hearing everybody talk about him, then watching him myself, I'm like, yeah, I definitely think he's a riser. And I think he's probably already in that day 2 with room to go up, along with his teammate CJ Allen.
Yeah. So we'll get to CJ Allen in a second, but Dale, I want to hit on that. So as anybody that follows the channel knows, we do team breakdowns, different teams Monday and Tuesday. This week, we're breaking down another team on Wednesday. And it's hysterical seeing draft professors in the chat wanting to talk about day 3 players. It's hysterical, right? And so in this case, Raylen Wilson is probably a day 2 linebacker with day 1 potential. Whereas on this other podcast, somebody's saying, well, for this school, I want to add these players. And somebody's like, well, they're not draftable. But he's like, I got a day 3 on them. I want to talk about them. So it's hysterical seeing people just get excited about wanting to talk about day 3 players. I absolutely love it. I'm here for all of it. And I'm glad that you got a taste of that with Raylen Wilson, Dale. That makes me happy. So thank you. That's what we do here, right? So the defensive star possibly for Georgia is going to be CJ Allen. As I'm looking at mock drafts and things of that, the highest rated Georgia player is probably going to either be Daylen Everette or CJ Allen, right? Dale, do you have a Georgia player higher on your board than either of those two?
No, those two are probably the 2 highest. And then, I mean, maybe a Zachariah Branch could get up there, but right now he's just a touch lower. I think those are probably the 2 most that I've got first/second on is Everette and CJ Allen.
Yep. So, Dale, what do you have on CJ Allen?
So 6'1", 235, junior linebacker, extremely reliable tackler, only a 6% missed tackle rate last year. Had 20 pressures to go along with it. So these Georgia linebackers, they get to do that a lot. They get the blitz. They're coming from everywhere. And I think that's a valuable skill that, teams get to see them do coming out of Georgia. And he's got really good straight line speed. Another guy who just turned 20 years old, so he's still very young. His pursuit angles looked really good on tape, and he's entering his third season as a starter. And Georgia has just produced linebacker after linebacker, player after player to the NFL draft, and this guy's been getting a ton of snaps year after year. So I definitely do think he's in line to be that next star coming out of Georgia on the defense. All eyes are going to be on him. Raylen Wilson's no slouch himself, as we just talked about. He some limited sack production, maybe that could tick up, and splash play production in general. So I don't know that he had any interceptions and then limited sacks for his career. And then the coverage grade last year was only a 48.3. So I think that's something both of those guys could work on. But as I mentioned, I think he's probably a first, second round type, top 50 type player right now on my board for sure.
David, how about you for CJ Allen?
Yeah, I have him as a top 50 player as well. Dale hit on the fact that he just turned 20. I mean, he's an interesting blend of youth and experience. And, he doesn't need the hype. His tape speaks loud enough, in my opinion. I mean, the guy notched 76 tackles last season. I think he had 4 PBUs. He plays instinctively. He flows to the ball with urgency. He hits with authority. He might not wow people with his measurables, but he wins with the feel and a high football IQ. He's a rising early rounder with the potential to lead a linebacker room at the next level, in my opinion. So, yeah, I have him as a top 50 guy as well.
Okay. And then a couple of defensive players. We're not going to spend a lot of time on them, but Jordan Hall, who's a redshirt sophomore defensive tackle, and Joenel Aguero, a junior safety. Dale, do you have anything on either of those two gentlemen?
Yeah, so Jordan Hall, 6'4", 320, so a big body D tackle. As you mentioned, just a redshirt sophomore, still also only 20 years old. It's amazing Georgia gets these guys out there and gets them to produce consistently at such a young age, but they're usually high 4 and 5-star recruits that they're getting to, so they're expected to perform early. Great balance, the ability to absorb double teams, former high school wrestler. So I know people always get excited about that for offensive and defensive linemen. So at the D tackle spot, that's nice to see. Good quickness for that size at 320. And he possesses a high motor. So sometimes you worry about, guys with that size. Is he going to give consistent effort? Is he going to, be able to do it down to down? And so far in limited opportunities, he's stepped up and performed really well. I think being only a redshirt sophomore, this is most likely a 2027 guy we're talking about here. But I do expect if you're a Georgia fan, you should be excited about what he's able to do along with Christen Miller this season at the D tackle spot.
And David, do you have anything to add on Jordan Hall?
Yeah, he's a big body, like Dale mentioned, heavy hands. He bullies people in the run game. But the only thing I could really add to it, he also has a gregarious personality. Players are attracted to him, man. He's a big locker room guy. He's a fun guy. Everybody on the field, when you look, he's the kind of guy that everybody gravitates towards. And, that goes a long way, building relationships, building, friendships with your teammates and stuff like that. He just, in addition to his athleticism, he's also just got a great personality. And I think, like Dale said, he's probably 2027. But all of these guys we're mentioning now are just so young that time is their biggest asset. I mean, they can definitely wait another year. So they should take advantage of it and just keep improving.
Well, in NIL money, it doesn't hurt to make them be able to make that decision if they're, not projected to be like a top 50, top 75 guarantee.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. So what I find interesting, so like Dale, as I'm looking at the screenshot that you shared in the group text we have as we prepare, like as we were going through the bulk of the players on that list, like the lowest ranking was like, we're just saying solid day 3. Yeah. We're not saying like fringe round 6 UDFA. There's 10 guys here that could all be gone by the time we get to like pick 140. Right? Like that's how deep this Georgia draft class is they may not have anybody go in the top 15, but they could have 10 guys go between pick 16 and pick 140.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. To me, that's how I heard the podcast. That's how I heard like what you guys were saying.
Yeah, and a bunch of young guys coming behind that, that we've mentioned, and some of the older guys that we didn't talk a whole lot about, like those wide receivers. So that could be, those could be your late day 3/undrafted guys, and that gets our list out to what, 15, 16 guys here before we're done with.
Yeah, I'm looking at Bill Sparks' list. I think other players that haven't been mentioned, but I will give a shout out to Daniel Harris, cornerback.
Yeah, I got a little bit on him. So 6'3", 195, true junior, plays mostly on the outside, great length, played his best football and played the most snaps down the stretch the last 2 games of the regular season and into the playoffs. He was in the doghouse, so I think that could have been affecting his playing time. He's one of those guys that was driving, as they have several of, over 100 miles per hour, and was arrested for that. So I think coach didn't play him, but they didn't officially get suspended. But his playing time went up toward the end of the year, and he's expected, I believe, be one of their starting corners this year. And 6'3" at corner, so very good length and could be a very exciting guy on the outside.
Okay, and then one other player from Bill Sparks, running back Roderick Robinson.
Is he – I didn't watch him. I was thinking he wasn't draft eligible, but I could be wrong on that. I was thinking, was he only a true sophomore, or is he like a red shirt sophomore? That might be what I wasn't sure about.
I'd have to go Google it to verify. He was on Bill's list, and just making sure that we drop the right names.
Absolutely.
And if you follow the channel, we cover the draft every day here. So as the season progresses, if players that we didn't spend a lot of time on now look like, hey, that's going to be at like a top 150 or a top 175 player in the draft, the channel will spend a lot more time on it.
So he is a redshirt sophomore, so he is going to be draft eligible, but redshirt sophomore is what he's going into. 6'1", 235, so big boy at running back. And I know he's been pretty impressive for them, along with a couple other guys. They got a lot of pretty good running backs at Georgia.
And another guy who he's 20 years old. It sounds like every person we talk about, we could just blindly say the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
He was an early enrollee, and it sounds like that, they got the market cornered on that right now.
Yeah.
David, is there anybody else from Georgia that?
No, those were the main 11 that I had, put down, and I just had taken notes and like you guys had just mentioned, that it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect 10 guys to go between pick 16 and 150. And if you look back in the past couple drafts, just the last 2 years, they've had 21 players selected in the last 2 seasons. So expecting 10 a season again is not, unreasonable at all. In fact, I would think it's probably going to be a lock. I mean, they're just churning out, NFL caliber talent year after year after year. And they just keep bringing more and more in. I mean, it's just a, incredible job that they've done down there with. And I can speak to the ones I'm familiar with, like on the Eagles and all. Their attitude and everything is NFL ready when they walk into that locker room. They are not intimidated by anything. Like Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. I think the Eagles have 7 of these guys on their defense right now. They're not all starters, but I think they have 7 of them, and probably 4 or 5 of them are starters. And they don't just come in there, hoping to win. They expect to win. They're used to championships. They're used to fighting like that. And they just come in there with such an attitude that they just took over the whole mentality of the defense within 3 seasons. And it's just been incredible to watch. And just to see Georgia be able to restock the way they have is just unreal. And to expect them not to shine, I won't do that. I always think, they're going to take a step back. They just lost player X, Y, and Z, and then nope, they just shuffle the deck and have 3 more guys who are going to be just as good. It's super impressive what they've done down there, and overall, I think once again they're going to be a draft class that's probably in the top 3 of players selected.
Yeah. So, Dale, could you pick if Georgia's in a top 3 draft class, what 2 schools would have more players drafted than Georgia? with what you see right now?
I mean, I think Clemson's certainly in the conversation that we started with. But it could be close on overall number of players. But I think Clemson definitely has like the early round guys on lock. I mean, I've got like 3 or 4 positions where a Clemson guy is number 1 at the position for me. So they definitely have the high end talent. But overall draft picks, I think you're going to, like a lot of years, I think Texas, who we're going to get to, Ohio State, LSU, a lot of those same teams are reloaded again and ready to go. And they're all could have so many guys. I think Georgia, now we've mentioned like 19 players here, Jim. With Aguero, I will mention Aguero because you mentioned his name, but he's 5'11", 205, junior safety, good instincts, aggressive tackler, doesn't have the best size, not the biggest guy. And ultimately, I think he could be one of those slot corners / safety. So he may ultimately move to slot corner in the NFL, but and he may ultimately be 2027 as well. But he was a starter last year. So, and yes, Chop, I mentioned LSU for you. I figured that would make you happy.
Yep. So why don't we pause, give a quick commercial, and then when I give my commercial, I'll make sure that Pork Chop knows when we're doing LSU. But David, you want to let everybody know who you are, let them know about your great website and everything else.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I write for Philly Sports Network and Metro Philadelphia paper covering the Philadelphia Eagles. I clearly have an affinity for Georgia Bulldogs the last few years. We've scouted a lot of their players and, drafted a lot of them, traded for a lot of them. So, yeah, it's been fun. I really enjoyed going through this class because it's always nice to see who's going to be on the Eagles defense in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and other website, it's called phillycovercorner.com. Greg Hart does a lot of stuff on that site. You can click on, draft analytics and everything, and it's for all 32 teams, not just the Eagles, despite the name being Philly Cover Corner. It was started during COVID when we were locked in a house with nothing to do, and we just changed, put that name there. But thank you, Pork Chop. I wish I was as cool as Green Lantern, But yeah, check out the site. It's got tons of just a plethora of information regarding draft picks, coaches' tendencies, GM tendencies, and things like that. If you're into, those types of analytics.
Dale.
So I do Bengals and Brews. We do Mondays and Fridays typically at 3:30. This week will be a special Wednesday episode. I'm borrowing Newt because I love having Newt on and messing with him. And he also has summers off. So we're able to, now that Newt's getting through his stuff, which I listened on podcast form, Jim, Spotify. Don't forget to plug that when you're plugging your stuff, because I listened to that episode when it was out on Spotify with him and Bill. An excellent job, as always, from those guys and yourself as well. So incredible stuff. And I love consuming a lot of content podcast form, so I'm excited that you've got that now, Jim, because now I can tune in more often.
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version. So there was a Friday night that Dale called me and said, Jim, I want a podcast in the Draft Professor. And that call lasted approximately 2 or 2.5 hours. It wasn't
I may have had some drinks on this Friday night.
And if you want to admit to that, I wasn't going to say anything unless you did. But,
very talkative that night.
But part of that conversation was Dale's like, you got to get your podcast on Spotify. So now Mrs. R Relevant, the Daily Draft Podcast, is on Spotify. And that's kicking out to Apple Podcasts and all the other things. So what can you expect? Daily draft content. Okay. So right now, Mondays and Tuesdays, we're breaking down individual teams. Pork Chop. That schedule for you is the following. July 7th, we are breaking down Oklahoma. Jake Robertson, a draft professor, will be there to represent Oklahoma. Okay. July 14th is LSU.
Oh, there you go, Pork Chop. We got one more and then LSU, brother.
Yep. Now, July 21st is Ohio State. Heather is coming on. That's one of Newt's podcasting friends as well. And then July 28th, we're doing Texas. That doesn't mean that we're done July 28th. That just means I'm taking it 1 month at a time. Right. And if you're interested in other schools, the Tuesday schedule includes Texas A&M, Arizona State, Auburn, Arkansas, and Florida. And those are all schools where we think that the caliber of players that the school has is worthy of a draft preview. We don't do every school, but we're trying to pick schools that we think will have like 6 to 8 guys. We are also doing Indiana on Wednesdays. We have a special Indiana show. There's some people that are new to Draft Professor. It'll be their first podcast ever with us. And we're going to be doing that one on Wednesday. So that's what you can see. And then every Friday, we're breaking down quarterbacks. Granted, I'm a Bills fan. Dale's a Bengals fan. David's an Eagles fan. Our teams don't need quarterbacks. Thank you.
Most do.
Yeah.
Most teams do.
So we are in the process of breaking down 29 different quarterbacks. We've already done 15. We have 14 left. So our podcast talking about Sam Levitt yet? We are, right? We got a few more that we'll be talking about that maybe not everybody else is. So that's what you can expect. Daily draft content. Follow NFL Draft Fanatic. No, I am Fanatic. Follow it on X. Follow it on YouTube. The best thank you can give is to either leave a review on Spotify or hit subscribe on YouTube. We are here every day. There are 22 people like Dale and David that help us put out daily draft content. Those 22 people are how people like Sam Teets will be coming on shortly. Travis May from A to Z Sports will be coming on. Ian Cummings from Pro Football Network is coming on a podcast soon. So stay tuned. Just hit that subscribe. That way you know. But the channel is growing. I couldn't do it without Dale, David, and everybody else here that contributes. But this is a lot of fun. And like I said, we're still 10 months away from the draft.
Yeah. Hey, you get that early start, and then the college football season, it'll be here before we know it, guys. And then we're going to have so many names now and so many guys to watch that we brought up and see how they're performing. Like, I'm excited for it. I feel like I'm further ahead than I've been personally, especially being on with you guys and everything like that, than I probably have any other year before, going into this season for players. So I'm excited even more for college football this year.
Well, I appreciate hearing that because I just have this impression that you would have had your board built as robustly as you shared it, whether you were involved with Draft Professor or not. So I'm glad I'm keeping you.
Well, it's just I feel like it's expanding now that I feel like, I'm definitely like the 2027 I could have halfway done at this point after all this. So it's just expanding and expanding, and the more players I have in, the more guys that, hey, when they make their declarations, if I have more done, it's much easier for me to make my updates to the draft guide that I do. So yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I echo everything Dale just said. I covered college football before I covered NFL football, and I wasn't this far along doing it for a job. So yeah, this has been incredible, man. Yeah, I mean, there are just so many deep dives and so many great people that you've gotten together. I think there's 80 people in that chat. Is that how many people are in that chat? I mean,
that is correct. The Draft Professor group chat is 80. If you like draft content and you want to be in that chat, there really isn't a lot of qualifications for membership other than don't talk about politics and don't be an a-hole.
Yeah.
And what happens at Fight Club stays at Fight Club.
Yeah. And if you like 4,312 notifications a day,
yeah, see, that's where I got too many already, man.
Yeah. So I do know that there are some people that may have to keep that chat muted.
Yeah,
right. But there's a lot of draft personalities that are in it that don't necessarily contribute to the group much, but it's definitely a good group of who to follow on X. If you like draft content in your feed, that group is second to none. But that being said, we are 55 minutes into the podcast. For all of you that listen to us talk about the Georgia draft class for an hour, thank you. For David, Dale, myself, the 80 podcasters at the Draft Professor, thank you for watching, everybody. We'll see you on a podcast again tomorrow.